Hello, everybody. Welcome. GameDay Squad's review show. We're doing a bit different now. We're going live, Cal. We have just concluded round 16 for Aussie Rules, and we're going to talk about all the games, all the players' performances this round. But before you introduce yourself and give your first comments, how are you feeling about our head-to-head matchup? I know you're very optimistic going into the round.
Hey, mate, good to see you and good to see everyone joining here. Like you said, we are doing something a little bit different. I'm keen to get straight into it. Why wait till Monday to rip our fantasy squads or give them some praise? I'm a bit nervous. I reckon we're actually going to go right down to the wire. I know we made a bit of a deal. We said we're not going to check the leaderboards, particularly on a Sunday. So I'm nervous. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be really, really close. We obviously had a few players playing in that last game. Your boy, Moore, did quite well, and I think he might just tiptoe you over the line with Waterman not doing so well for me. But I don't know that for sure. So keen to see it. Keen to see that and keen to talk about the rest of my squad too.
Nice, man. Yeah, absolutely. It was a pretty fantastic round. Definitely some surprises in terms of performance, and maybe the numbers weren't indicating that players would play as well as they did, but then quite the opposite as well. I feel like some people absolutely shined in this round and just dominated.
Real boom or bust round. Hey, like there were a few players it seemed like there were a few players that were, let's say, fringe players for people's squads that were going huge. And then there were a lot of players who were just absolute locks in people's squads not doing so well. So people like Heaney, people like Dawson, Gould, and Gorn, or I think everyone kind of would have had them. So it makes you feel like you had a worse round. I don't know how I'm going to go overall. I haven't been paying attention to that. So I don't know if there's a lot of people playing pods this week. I don't know how much it's affected everyone. Keen to, if you're following along, let us know in the comments wherever you're listening how much it
100%.
You. So
yeah, no, I totally agree, mate. If you are live as well, how do you feel about your round, just overall? Give us a couple words, a little statement. What's the general mojo? But we're going to get into this round. We're going to start it off a little bit different this week, Kel.
Yeah.
This is called Ship You Said. It's a little play on words. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to predict things that each other would have said throughout the round, just to, knock the edge off a little bit before we start talking numbers and talking performance. So do you want to take it away? What do you reckon I would have said this round?
I had your one pretty early in the piece. I reckon, and I'll even give you a time. I reckon Friday night at halftime, you would have said, damn, I'm in some trouble. Because you'd played Rivers, and I think he had like 40 points to halftime, and you didn't play Dunkley. Or at least I didn't think you played Dunkley. So, yes, I reckon you would have been in a world of hurt halfway through the first game of the round, and I reckon you would have been like, I'm in some trouble.
Well, I'll tell you what, you definitely thought that I was in some trouble. I got a text message from you during that game saying Rivers stink emoji or poo emoji, and I've got this already. So
ship emoji.
Yeah, you know what? I think it was more Dunkley's performance rather than Rivers. Like, look, Rivers wasn't ideal, but missing out on 178 fantasy points in your midfield is never good when you're going head-to-head against your buddies. So you know what? I'll give it to you. That's a thumbs up. I definitely would have said that. Yeah, well done.
Yeah, nice.
But I know that one I'm about to say you definitely would have said.
Yeah, hit me.
You ready? Short and sweet. Ken Hinkley, you rat, you've done it again.
Oh, don't be mean, mate. You'll make him cry. Come on. None of that here.
He loves it. But
did you see that? I don't know. You might not have stuck around in the interviews.
He loves the club that much that he's willing to, do that. Surely, did that get any brownie points or respect points from Port fans, or is it just same old with him?
No, he's trying to humanize himself. It's not working.
What do you reckon? Would he have said that this round?
Would I have said that?
Yeah. You're going to give it to me?
You know what? Yeah, I've got to give it to you. I was thinking there was a point there. I was like, if we lose this, we're not making finals, and there's potentially a case where he gets sacked before the end of the season. I think I turned to my dad and I was like, if we lose here and we get mathematically eliminated a few rounds before the season is finished, do you reckon I'll sack him then? So that's where my mind was at. So yeah, definitely. I'll give it to you.
Fair enough. But Cal, let's get it moving along because I know why everyone's here. They want to know the review from round 16 of Aussie Rules. And of course, we're going to be doing this from a fantasy perspective as always. So it's time. A little bit of red zone. If you know, you know. It's time to go game by game and have a look at some of the highlights. And gosh, in the background there's some highlight players we're playing.
Well, I tell you what, credit. One thing that people don't give, people don't say about the buys. The good thing about it is you actually get to watch every single game. I almost felt like I needed a bit of AFL red zone after having the last few weeks off, right? So yeah. I didn't get to watch the North game, the North Dogs game. I didn't watch, and I didn't watch the Carlton game this afternoon in full. And what was the other one last night? I was flicking between the other two. I feel like
Geelong.
Yeah, I was flicking between the two. But so yeah, there's probably stuff we've missed out along the way. But it's nice and easy when there's a game on a Thursday night as well, and they don't do the double header. You just get to watch every game. It makes who doesn't want to watch 9 games of footy a week?
Speaking of 9 games, let's get into round 1. Oh, the round snapshot. Here we go. What is this, Cal? You've prepared this for us all. I assume this is just having a look at some fantasy scores, highest players.
Yeah, just before we jump into round by round and we talk about it, just highlighting there who the top 10 for the round were. Pretty clear.
I like this sort of graphic. Whitfield. Is this fantasy points 4? Right.
Yeah, so for the squad, so what that's showing you is that shows that the Hawks as a team actually scored more fantasy points than anyone else. And look down the other end, Eagles had an absolute stinker, and I'll touch on that a little bit when we get to their game. So you can just kind of see across the board. We've played around with a few other things, but a few fantasy friendly teams up there. But then also down the bottom, look someone like
Swannies down there, Collingwood, some surprising teams for sure.
Yeah, it's just to get an idea on how the game styles and things like that, because that's obviously important. But yeah, on the right-hand side there, you can see some top 10 players, and I feel like how many
did you have? And anyone who's watching along, how many of the top 10 did you lock into your squad for this round?
I've got 5. I won't tell you. I'll tell you as we go through, but I had 5.
Same
in my classic.
5. Yeah, 5. Okay,
that's pretty good.
Let's move it along.
If you take 5 of the top 10 every week, you'd be happy with that. Let's go.
Oh, gosh. It might be, from the numbers, it might be one of the first times this season I've done it. But as you said, it was feast or famine, so there are definitely some poorer performances from my squad. One of those being Silver Max Gorn this round. Didn't have the game that everyone expected. The matchup looked pretty good. It's not even like the Big O played that good either. It's just they sort of nullified each other in a way. Just, wasn't Big Gorney's day. He's been having a stellar season, but this one wasn't one that he's going to want to remember. Only 81 fantasy points throughout this one.
Yeah, definitely. And he's obviously been the high scoring ruck by some distance this season. So I reckon most coaches would have been rolling with him. Very few would have, I reckon, dropped him completely. But up against the Big O. Is he becoming? Is the Big O now becoming a threat to people like Gorn? You got to look out for him in those matchups. But I think the thing was they split the hitouts. It was pretty close. So that's where Gorn could have got an extra 20 points maybe on someone else. So, but I obviously played the platinum. My strategy, as you saw on the preview show on Thursday night, was let me put my salary cap into those high scoring players. So I targeted 3-4 of them. And to be honest, it was pretty feast or famine with them as we'll go through. So he was definitely he was the first one that was famine. Zorko,
Why don't you move on to your 2 bronzes you played? Zorko, Dunkley, the 2 highest scoring players for this game, mate. Talk about their performance for game 1.
Yeah, I don't know what really to say other than Zorko. He's just very solid and then halfback for the Lions at the moment. Again, I do not imagine many people would not be playing him. My thought was Zorko this week actually went to, is he definitely a lock for the All-Star squad? And then does that become a defender card next year? Is Zorko going to be running around at halfback for us? So that's where my mind went. I probably don't want to talk to him. I want to talk about Dunkley. I know I've got, I don't know if you can make it out behind me. I've got Mr. Triple Double himself just above my right ear there. Did you see Dunkley had a quadruple double on Friday night? Did you see that stat line? I know you sort of see it as GDS points.
Oh, because it would have been 10 handballs, 10
kicks, marks, tackles, and marks. And I was listening to him interview the next day, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't realize I was doing that, but that's sick." It's like, so good on him. That's what you want in fantasy. You want someone that can run around, take the marks, but 10 tackles as well. Like he was just dominant. He loves it. I think that's not the first time he's hit that this year. And yeah, that just shows you the difference between him getting a good score around 130 and 140 is those tackles. So yeah, would have stung you as much as everyone else every time he tackled them, because as a coach that didn't play him this week, would have been points you were bleeding out. But I'll let you talk about Rivers. Go to Rivers. Talk about what didn't go right there.
Look, it definitely could have been worse. Like, in all honesty, look, it's not great. You're playing someone like that, 76 fantasy points, and as a defender this year, with how good defenders are, you're expecting like 115, 120, sort of in that position. But you know what? I actually took a lot of positives away from it. He played a lot of the time in the midfield. It looks like he's going to continue to play a ton of time in the midfield. Where I think it went wrong in this matchup is that the Lions midfield just outclassed and outworked the Demons one, and they just didn't give up too many fantasy points. And like the Bulldog, like Viney, he still ended up having a pretty cracker game. He had the 125, but after that, it seems there wasn't a whole lot going on. It was Viney, it was Oliver. I know Cozzy Pickett was coming in and doing some stoppage work as well. So he's someone I definitely had an eye on throughout that one and thought, wow, that could be something moving forward, because they're going to have to split those Petrarca minutes over a couple of players. I don't think it's just one person fills in that role. It's who can come in and fill up the scraps. But Pickett in that stoppage work was super eye-opening. But I do think Rivers in a better matchup can be much better than what he delivered. Like, he went really quiet for a lot of the game. So in my opinion, to still pull out 76 fantasy points, I think it was quite positive in the end. And maybe it's not someone you want to start, but definitely keep an eye on moving forward, because I reckon there'll be a matchup or two where he'll just be like a league winner for you.
Yeah, that's a good call. I wouldn't be playing him. Like you said, that Brisbane matchup, they are one of the toughest sides across the board to score points against. So yeah, that's a fair one there. Is there anyone else you want to talk about? Neil McCluggage also did quite well if you try to zag. I mean, hopefully you didn't zag away from Dunkley. They were solid. I love seeing Will Ashcroft come back and almost ton up in his first game back from his ACL. That got me excited.
He came out with the bang, didn't he? But yeah, maybe your boy, we don't have to talk about him too long, but Joe Danaher, we thought maybe he'd only be goal dependent, but it just seems like he's putting together quite a good fantasy season, and potentially it might be time to start moving him into your forward lines more frequently.
Shades of Tom Lynch, hey? That's the vibe I'm getting. Was it from 2 years ago? Or was that last year?
2 years ago. Yeah,
2 years at the very end of the season, when we were playing around. That's the sort of vibe I'm getting with Danaher at the moment. I know some people like to play Viney because he just is someone that can be a really good pod, but he's also a solid player. So if you went that direction, 125 would have been good. But looking through the rest of the squads, there's probably no one else I really want to talk about there. I feel like you can see the big boys got the job done. Mate. So let's go. Game two.
Heavy game for me. Of course, both played Sheasel, both played Fisher, which sub-injured, man. That stung. That was big one.
Yeah, so I didn't get to watch this, but I have heard. So it was a tactical sub, but the word was that he was a bit sore leading up to it before he subbed off. So potentially precautionary. So definitely watch and see during the week for Fisher and have a backup plan for if he doesn't get up. Who they got this week? Haven't even looked at Gold Coast. So Gold Coast at home, which means the Gold Coast are going to lose. So maybe Fisher's going to be locked for everyone if he's healthy. So keep an eye on that one. Sheasel's just pretty good, man. I was looking at him, looking at his heat map. He's literally, it's almost like a perfect heat map. I don't know if you've jumped on the app and had a look. He's just like, if you could just space the dots out perfectly, that's kind of the game he had. It was just, he was everywhere. Not down back too much, got forward a little bit, got in the middle. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, but I must say, he's in his worst form of the season currently.
He is, and that's the
midfield role isn't as friendly for him, and it's definitely something I've been keeping an eye on. Like, not to say that 105 points is bad, but we're talking about a player who was pumping out 150s for fun at the start of the year.
Yeah, he's definitely lost that role, that sweeper role he had down back. But I'm still going to be playing him every week because you say, all right, he's in a bit of a rough patch. Last week he went 135, 117 before that, 124, 123. So, as a defender, hovering around that 120, 125 average, you'd be playing that. And then if you've got something like I've got where you got the All-Star, it's almost a no-brainer. Even though it's
Yeah,
only that slight little thing. I see it's going to be very hard for me to ever want to take him out of the squad.
fair call. No, it's not. It's not as talking like as in bench him, but it's definitely something like keep an eye on because definitely if we're talking trends, it's definitely going the other way. But maybe he takes a little bit more time to just get comfortable in that role. And but anyway, let's talk about some of the midfielders in this one. Bontempelli was the best on ground, and he definitely seemed like it. First of all, like how many people do you think played Bontempelli? And secondly, was anyone scared seeing him starting in the forward line before the game? Because I know they had him listed as a forward. So did anyone potentially see that and go, nah, okay, look, he might spend a bit too much time up there. But if you did play him, wow, it was a great decision in the end.
Yeah, what back spasm. Shout out to Warney. He tweeted on Thursday night. I think I thought I saw him say back spasm game in reference to the Michael Jordan flu game. And I tell you what, he came out and looked like it. And you know what the crazy part about it was? He scored almost 150 points and he kicked 3 behinds. He could have easily have turned them into a couple of goals, and we could be sitting 100%. There talking about one of the top. I know he's scored quite well, but we could be talking about 160, which would just be crazy. So
exactly,
yeah. To answer your question, do I think a lot of people would have played him? I reckon a lot of people would have been quite scared to play him. I reckon people would have done what you did and went Treloar, who didn't. Yeah, or I guess I'll let you touch on the Treloar. It wasn't terrible, but definitely wasn't the score that you want as out of one of your midfielders, and definitely not if you're playing the silver on him, which you unfortunately did.
Yeah, look, it's not horrible. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely not ideal. 2 goals definitely saved his day out, in my opinion. It could have been a lot worse, and he probably would have been well under the 100 mark if he didn't kick those 2 goals. So thank you, Treloar, for at least doing that and cracking the triple digits. But yeah, just didn't. 22 disposals in general. I probably just thought he was going to get a little bit more work there, and only 1 tackle for the game as well. So look, just wasn't as involved. And the North midfield matchup is so fantasy friendly, and the numbers just indicate that someone like Treloar should just dominate in this one. The same with Bond. Like, don't get me wrong, but look, just wasn't his day in the office. Maybe he was just on cruise mode a little bit too long throughout. But yeah, as you said, disappointing to say the least, for sure.
Yeah, not much that you can say. It's even worse, right? When you said, when you got Bont running around there. Libba did all right too. They kind of him and Treloar sort of shared that football in the middle. But talk me through your last one, Bailey Dale, silver as well.
Just thought slingshotting off that defense would be a little bit more active, a little bit more involved. But look, it's okay. 25 disposals, just didn't do too much else other than that. But look, I'm not too concerned about Bailey Dale. He's in really good form. I do think it's a little bit concerning that Williams is playing so well with the 102 fantasy points in this one. I know Williams started off the game on fire, and Dale sort of just was a bit quiet. So the ball was strictly going through Williams almost in the first quarter. But Dale caught up to scratch, got involved in the game a little bit more. And look, he's had a pretty fantastic season since he had that monstrous 190 fantasy point round. He's just a pretty solid option, and yeah, I will continue to start him moving forward, but it's definitely on a matchup to matchup basis. And I did think I am disappointed only because I thought this matchup would be better.
Yeah, no, fair. Something that I want to talk about. We've got 2 names there in front of you, the Ruckman battle. So Tristan Xerri obviously went quite good. And we were talking about on that Thursday show, we said, who is going to be the pod ruckman that you're going to play this week if you're not going to go the Gordon Marshall? The answer was Cherry. So 1 was Marshall, and we'll touch on him a little bit later on. But 2 is Tristan there with 141. Outshined your boy Timmy English, who is just unplayable at the moment compared to everyone else around. It's not like he's bad. He's bad based on expectation, but he's just fallen back into just an average ruckman. which must be
I don't know what's
heartbreaking for
going
you.
on. It is
Yeah.
heartbreaking. I just don't understand Tim English. What are you doing? He's literally the best ruckman in the comp when he wants to be. It's just so frustrating to see the season he's having. It's just like it's no excuse. Like you can talk about the other things, but like losing the hit out battle most weeks to the opposing ruckman is just no excuse for someone who should be as dominant as Tim English. So look, I don't know if there's something going on behind the scenes, if he's carrying a niggle and that's why he's not playing as well. But I'll tell you what, if you had full stocks in a Tim English this season, you would not be happy with the return you've gotten for it.
Well, wasn't that you, right? So you went out and you bought yourself a Tim English card, an all-star, and then what? The next week he had a stinker, and
Look,
I think
he didn't have a good season.
I think you can
pretty
pinpoint
much
the moment from when you bought it, and his form just absolutely plummeted. So must be
But look, we're a
heartbreaking for you.
dynasty. Nah. We're a dynasty platform, mate. If you don't think Tim English will come back to his best at some point, then you must be silly. And look, there'll be no all-star Tim English next year, and that's great for me because I'll have one of very few that are possible to play. So might even work out in my favour. You never know.
Well, what about a little trade? We send Tim English to the West Coast Eagles. Harley Reid can come back. It'll be Tim English and picks and more players and everything else. But yeah, you never know. Free that man up. Let Timmy English cook back over in Perth.
Please no. Yeah, but let's quickly wrap up this game. Cody Waitman was pretty interesting. He was in some stellar form before. Kicked 3 goals, 96 fantasy points throughout. He's definitely someone to keep an eye on as well. If you're looking at your forward line, I know some weeks it can be pretty tough to pick, but yeah, he could be a nice little pod play in there. He's had some pretty monster performances. And
shout out Tom Powell as well.
Tom Powell.
81. Which has been good for his little run of form. I miss when Tom Powell was a lock in our squad. was on all-star track.
You haven't recovered from that. I'm not recovering from English, but you have not recovered of Tom Powell coming out of your forward line at all. No. I don't really want to talk about this game, Cal. You can just talk about it, bro. This is heartbreak.
Yeah, it was a really interesting game because I was watching it and I thought you guys would come back the whole time. Even at the end, I'm like, oh, Logan will kick this. You just have that aura around you guys at the moment. So I think it was good for the comp that you guys got knocked off. Humble you guys a little bit. You're already booking flights and everything for the grand finals. So would have hurt even more that you played your all-star Goulden and he was just a bit stinky. As you can see, he's not even in the top 10 list of players there. I played the gold as well, so I've also thrown the cap on him. And yeah, I don't know where you want to start. Do you want to start with him? Do you want to talk about all your midfielders at one? Do you want to talk about Heaney being tagged out of the game by Nat 5? Where do you want to start? Where do you want to start the mess?
I don't want to start anyway. I said you can take it.
All right. Well, yeah, Goulden, obviously, we always said that he's an absolute lock for 20 kicks a game. He only had 23 touches.
I'm Logan McDonald, by the way. So,
sorry? Blame
Logan McDonald for my mood. I can't believe he couldn't even get a point.
Oh. Yeah. He never looked confident.
Nah, he wanted to give that off the entire time. He's so right.
But Goulden's in my squad next week. There's no concerns. He's bouncing back. He's definitely earned an off game here or there. Heaney as well. I think this is his first poor game for the season. I don't know when the last time. I don't know if you've got the numbers there in front of you. When was the last time that Heaney had a game like this? Which when we're saying it's a bad game, right? I'm going to tell you about some worse games I had later on. So he almost still scored 89 points. So by Heaney standards, I think that just shows you how good he's been this season. So again, most coaches would have played him. Let me talk about Luke Ryan. So 122 points, was just chipping around out the back, was fantastic. How was the Luke Ryan experience knowing that A, you didn't play him in your squad, and then B, he was just getting easy touches out the back against your beloved Swans?
It's okay. I was more disappointed about the hair. What happened?
Yeah.
It's gone. I really like the real Slim Shady, nice bleached blonde hair to make sure I knew exactly who was kicking it in every single time. No mistake. But, sometimes he had me second guessing myself whether it was a little cheapy Ryan. But no, he had a good game. He
definitely not as recognizable.
Yeah. It was sad. Who played, I think Ryan was going to play better in this matchup. I was a little bit nervous about all the defenders, I'll be honest with you, and I didn't play either one. But I was really worried about Clark, and I think he probably impressed me more than Ryan, knowing that he had Jordan on him, and he still had a really, really good game. He had 106 fantasy points. I thought he was super impressive throughout, and didn't see that coming. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I was nervous about the matchup. Like we said, with the Freo guys, it was normally a case of how many of the three can you play. Clark did quite well. I mean, if you'd be happy enough, you would have taken 106. And the crazy thing as well, it wasn't a massive Sarong game or it wasn't a massive Andy Brayshaw game. So when you lost, it was just a bit weird because outside
a bit of everyone, I think they just beat us all around the ground. And like when I was watching it, that was the disappointing thing because we were just like better than that. But yeah, in terms of fantasy as well, they were always first to the footy. They were tackling really hard. Their pressure was up. It just didn't feel like we were in the game. But I'll tell you what, the one good takeaway from it is like if the Swans can play that bad and be that close to still winning, then that is the one positive I guess you can take away from it. But what about Hayden Young? Like if you had to pick out of the three, goodness, 49 fantasy points. Hopefully you didn't start Hayden Young in your defense this round because my goodness, that would nearly destroy the round right there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of coaches would have avoided him. Like we said, the matchup wasn't fantastic, both down back and off half back, and then also through the middle. Swans are really, really tough through there. So, yeah, but yeah, very stinky. I would be avoiding him for a little bit, that's for sure.
I'll say, just hop in, quickly. I reckon this round, or this game, game 3, disappointed just everyone in general. I just you got your second highest scorer at 122, and then you got 112, 112, 112, 108, 108, and we're dropping below 90 already. Before, that is just pretty horrible for the quality and the standard of players that were in there. Unless you had Blakey, which I don't know too many people would have had, or Luke Ryan, you'd be really disappointed with the performances overall. Some better than others, but still,
Yeah, and you can see there that the Swans had the 5th lowest score for fantasy points in the game, and Dockers weren't too much better, right? So it was a pretty low-scoring fantasy game across the board. A few players I just want to touch on here. Sean Darcy stocks. Man, 2 years ago, was this guy going to be the ruck? And now it's like, geez, what are you doing with all your Sean Darcy cards when you get them? Is there ever a world where Sean Darcy bounces back? Does he become a number one ruck by himself? Is he done? It's such a shame because he's still pretty young, Darcy. It's not like he's, late 20s. So he's still, and ruckmen we do know take a while to develop unless your name's Tim English. So yeah, there's still a chance that he pops up, but I don't know if I'm looking into that. There's a question mark there. Can I give you a bright spot? Can I give you something good? Because something good happened over the weekend relating to the Swans. I think I made one of my best purchases, maybe ever, in terms of value, bang for buck.
Okay.
And it involves a beloved Swan and a diamond card. Yeah, a diamond row bottom. I snapped one up off the market. Have a guess what price you think I got a diamond row bottom for.
Oh, you paid for it. I'm going to say it's going to be good value. I'm going to say $15.
I got it for $8.
Wow.
I got a 23-year-old diamond row bottom for $8. So shout out.
You take that.
If you sold that to me, thank you. Don't know if I'll be deploying him in my champion squad next week. He's going to stay away from the classic. But yeah, tell you what, you know how much I love him.
All right. I'm getting off this game. I'm sick of seeing this. All right, I'm moving on. I'm sorry, bro.
I try to cheer you up with my row bottom purchase. But
look, that is pretty elite. You got to give it, and you've been riding the row bottom train for as long as anyone. So it's good that you get rewarded with a diamond now, and you can deploy him, set and forget in your champion squad.
Yeah, I will. I'll captain him. He'll be my favorite. Yeah, talk about this because you know what I'm excited about? When we have our morning meeting tomorrow, Kerm, the Suns fan, he's going to be chirpy. He's going to be happy, and I'm looking forward to that because it's every second week. Are the Suns playing at home, which means Kerm's going to be happy. at work on Monday. The Suns are playing away. He's going to be upset at work on Monday. So this is a happy germ day. I'm looking forward to that. They got a good win. I don't know if you want to touch on Flanders. Flanders is just Flanders. Solid, 119. That's a low game for him.
Yep.
Do you want to maybe start there and then we can go through Dacos?
Yeah, Flanders probably is like a little bit disappointing, just like expectation wise. But like as a forward this year, 119 fantasy points. He truly is set and forget right now. I just don't think there's ever a matchup that's bad for him. Ever a matchup where you should consider taking him out. Because like even if a target comes in, like in all honesty, I don't think the target is going to Flanders anyway. It's probably going to a Noah or it's going to a Took or it's going to one of their inside players. So I just think as a safety net and as a fantasy performer, Flanders has probably been a top 3 fantasy player this entire season in the AFL, period. In GameDay Squad. Like I can't see why he doesn't deserve a top 3 spot for his fantasy production and just output every single round. So, yeah, look, disappointing a little bit, but, mate, as you said, like with Errol, probably deserves to have a little bit of an off week. And if 119 is an off week, then my goodness, I can't wait to see you get back in form.
Well, the difference between him and Errol is he found the footy 33 times. So it was just a few extra handballs and normal few extra marks that were dropped or things that didn't go right. He didn't, just didn't get a couple tackles as well. So yeah, I'm not too worried about him. I reckon again most people would have had him. Dacos as well, huge, 144, kicked a couple of huge goals. So when Dacos is kicking goals, he becomes an elite fantasy player. And yeah, I hope everyone's got one in your squad because I tell you what, they're going to be hard to go and find on the market. So yeah, I don't know. You played the silver, which is good. He's starting to get back into that early season form where you remember at the start I was playing his platinum, playing his gold and things like that. I reckon it's time to start really thinking about putting more salary cap on Nick Dacos. So depending on the matchups that they have, I'm just trying to see who they've got this week. They've got Essendon. So yeah, the Friday night game. So
it's a great matchup.
Yeah, so I reckon I'll be having a think about that. Do I play more than the bronze one there? But the star of the game, and I'm sure someone that scored you a lot of points with that silver card, Noah Anderson. So I'll let you take it away because you're probably watching him a lot closer than I was.
Yeah, mate, I reckon you would have eyes off for you. But 158 fantasy points, 174 as a silver. This is when, I thought it was like doomsday for me in talking about this round between us two. This is when, in my opinion, things started to come back into I thought maybe I'm a chance. We still don't know the result, of course, between us. But I do think I feel a lot better about it after this game and some of the other games we're about to talk about than what I did the game prior. Because after that Swans game, I didn't even want to watch footy anymore. I was like, my round is over. We haven't even gotten past the night games for Saturday, and I'm already calling it in. I'm just done with this all. So Noah Anderson was just dominant. And I think that's the only word you can use. He had 70 regular fantasy. So he would have had about 85, 90 GameDay Squad fantasy points at quarter time, sorry.
Yeah, massive,
at
like
quarter
huge
time.
early. Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers of how much, but I know he was teeing off, and I was like, oh no,
Man.
Did Tom play Anderson? Hoping that
I went against it, eh?
I was hoping that maybe you took a last minute last player out and done something silly, done a Kerm, but no, he was fantastic. So he did that without even scoring as well, right? Sorry, like hitting the leaderboard, kicking goals. You know what I meant. It's late on a Sunday night. Apologies for that.
Got you, mate.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah, because he can be dangerous in front of goals as well. You're totally right. And that's like an area where I sort of thought that he was going to get a little bit dangerous in this game. I know when we were talking in the preview show, I was saying, if Noah can hit the scoreboard here, I think he can turn his game into a really, really fantastic one. But fortunately for all of us this round that started him, he didn't need that. He was just dominant. What did he have? 39 disposals, mate. Bloody hell. Five tackles as well, just to go with it. Just absolutely fantastic. I do want to shout out quickly one other player here. I'm going to go Ben Ainsworth, a forward. But look, if you look at his form this year, he only averages 78 fantasy points. But in this one, he comes out and he goes 133 with 2 goals, 17 kicks. So he looked like he was just teeing off on the Pies this round. Is it someone I'm going to put on my forward line next week? No, I don't think so.
Please do. I'd love to see Ben Ainsworth running around. Tuke Miller, 112. I don't know if people are still playing him. Probably not. Jared Witts, potential pot option against pretty soft Collingwood ruckman. Didn't do fantastic. Sexton, let's talk about him because he's not on the list. The Sexton days, the 3-week stretch of Sexton running around off half.
You miss Tom Powell. I miss Sexton. That's the one I missed, bro. My forward line. Those days when he was set and forget. Bring them back, please. Oh.
Well, it's funny because it's Will Power that slotted back into that halfback role and it's just taken it away from Sexton. So, yeah, it was nice when we had an extra forward running around. But, yeah, now that's sort of gone. Don't know. DeGoey, 114 backer. He's never going to be, he's never been a big GDS option. So I don't know many coaches will be looking to Jordan DeGoey, but it is good to see him back.
I'm with you there, mate. No, I don't think too many people would have been doing that. But anyway, anyone else you want to talk about in this round? I think we covered that pretty well. Covered all the main fantasy players.
Nah, shout out there. Laptop's about to die, so I've done the quick grab the charger. So, yeah, move on to the next. So, yeah, that was the appearance of my charger being delivered.
I was wondering what was going on there. Now, just compare this game to that Swans game where we had 90s down the bottom. We've got 190, 137, 134, 127. Like, this is what we're talking about. This was a fantasy-friendly game. We saw the Adelaide Crows go up against the Giants in what might have been the end of the Crows season, the end of their finals hopes. I know, Bales, mate, we love you here at GameDay Squad, but my goodness, your team is in absolute bloody shambles, and I don't think they're playing finals footy this year, and I have a feeling you might feel the same way.
Yeah, they won. You're talking like they've gotten absolutely spanked by the Giants. But yeah, they're not playing finals. We're not playing finals, so I can't throw stones either.
They did win. Wow, I thought they lost.
Hey, I understand why you might have thought that. I would have penciled them for a loss too. They actually had a good win. They had a good win. It was a tight game, but they had a good win. This is the issue, right? When you got 2 games, because I know I was watching the other.
When I was watching, they were up, and I just assumed GWS would just run it home.
Nope. But Whitfield, start there because that absolutely hurt the most. And I think the theme of this round, his defenders just absolutely teeing off. I think when we put up that list at the start, it was your Whitfields, it was your Ryans, Zorko running around a halfback. Yeah, I know he's not a defender in our game, but still.
A strategy that you like to use very often is you like to put big salary cap on players you think are going to go well. And look, I put some silvers on this week, like Fisher, like other players, and look, they don't tee off. But the benefit is when you spread that salary cap around, you get a 190 performance from one of your defenders, which turns into 209 fantasy points. That essentially is just picking up the scraps for Trent Rivers' 70-plus performance. I'm getting an extra 20 fantasy points on top, and that's just putting him to nearly 100. And it's like, that doesn't sting as much anymore because, Lachie Whitfield, you have come to save my day. 41 disposals, 12 marks, 4 tackles, was everywhere. You could see they were almost just like forcing it into his hands. And that's what they want. The Giants want Lachie Whitfield to be their main distributor, and they want him to be taking the ball out of their defense, linking it up to their mids, into their forwards. But look, didn't get the win, the Giants. But gosh, if you played Lachie Whitfield, you got the win this round. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And if you didn't play Lachie Whitfield, I don't think you've got a chance of winning because he was that good. And there's going to be someone out there like Tom that's played him. So, yeah, you got that one right.
That was the killer blow. But I actually think the next player was the killer blow in my eyes because Whitfield, I know 190 is absurd, but 137 from Isaac Rankin was, I think, when I was looking at this is when I was back. I was back in this matchup truly by this point. I was not happy until this game.
And putting our head-to-head rivalry away for a second, Dawson was having a bit of a stinker to start the game. It was really at the end he started picking up points.
Getting tired.
Yeah. So at the end of the game, he said, "I don't care if I'm being tagged. I just don't care if my team wins." Good on him. But yeah, that second half and
I
with those
care though.
scores, if you finish in the leaderboard this week, it's because of these decisions and that beautiful Jordan Dawson card that you have there. So yeah, pretty good one. And you know what? Just for a little cherry on top, your boy Hinge is starting to become a stud. I joked
He's
about it
eating.
on the third. I joked about it on the Thursday night. I said, you know what? Potentially someone you could be playing, and you're like, nah, not yet, not yet. And you're right, definitely not yet. Now he's got me thinking:
He's
is it
starting to
Hinge
cook.
season? Is it Hinge season? Is Hinge an actual pod that people can be playing? He's an awesome little bit of a run of form at the moment.
Yeah. But, mate, can I quickly talk about Isaac Rankin? I know you went on him this week. I
Yeah,
saw
go.
last week, he didn't play last week. I think they had the bye. But the week prior, he started playing in the midfield. I spoke about in the preview show how Matty Crouch is out. There's a massive void in that midfield. They need someone to come in. Saligo's been okay, but I just think that someone with the class and caliber of Rankin can really just grab onto that role. And if you watch this game, you'd have saw that's exactly what he did. He was a clearance specialist. Now, that has a lot to do with Dawson getting tagged. Don't get me wrong, because Dawson essentially wouldn't get these clearances because he's got man on getting bumped out of it. But what it did is it opened up the way for Isaac Rankin to just completely dominate. He's kicked 2 goals along with that as well. He had 20 kicks throughout this one, mate. If he's going to continue to play like this, I think this is someone that you need to start playing in your forward line. I'm just fortunate that I got on it maybe a little bit earlier than others, but I think moving forward, you'd be silly not to have Isaac Rankin in your best 7 forwards for a round.
Yeah, you definitely nailed it. And I was just looking at his heat map there. He was, like you said, everywhere. He's got a tricky matchup coming up this week, though. He plays the Lions. So, yeah, is that someone that you want to be rolling him out against?
We'll see. Wait for Thursday. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that. Yeah. Anyone else you want to talk through here? Tom Green, solid.
Actually, what? I'm going to give it to him. Very solid. He's been in some shocking form this year. I think he's only just now. Let me have a look at his prior game because he's just.
But if you play Tom Green, you don't want a 120. Like it's not a round killer. But it's not going to win you anything. It's just pretty. What do we say is par normally for a midfielder? You look for 125. For a good score. So yeah, close enough to that. Yeah, why you bring that stuff up? I just want to talk
144 back-to-back weeks. It's starting to get a little bit better.
It's good. It's good without being great. He still handballs too much. 38 touches for only 120 points is criminal. Where Lockie Whitfield had 41 and at 190. So, and shout out Benny Keys, who as a forward, 116, started to look better the last couple of weeks. He was someone I was really high on coming into this season. I thought he would go and have a bit of that midfield time with that forward status, but unfortunately it didn't work out like I wanted to. But he's starting to get a little bit more up the ground, up the wings. But no, not the midfield CBA stuff that I thought potentially he could get there. So
that's a good call. Good shout. I do think, though, if you're going to play Crows forward right now in your GameDay squad, it has to be Isaac Rankin. If you're really desperate and you want a pod, go with someone like Keys. But I'll tell you what, like Rankin, just the form, the role. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyone else you want to touch on this one, mate, or should we move on to Game 6?
Move on, Game 6. Bit of a controversial this one. Sorry to the Essendon fans that we have to make them relive this one. Where do you want to start? Caldwell?
We want to start with Jai Caldwell. Fortunately for you, you had Jai. Like I feel like I've been on a roll for the past couple of games. This is the cow game at least. At least you came back and you got Caldwell in because I know if you didn't start Caldwell, I could almost guarantee my win this round. It would be done. This has brought it, I think, close. My gut feeling is it's going to be close. And this, if you do end up winning, will be potentially why, because you went with Caldwell.
Yeah, he was just everywhere, wasn't he? And like we were talking about with Dunkley before, if you're good and you find the footy and then you can find a way to get 12 tackles in a game, you're going to have a good score. And he definitely
did. You see the game, though?
Yeah, pouring rain. Yeah, it was one of those ones where we know historically that when it rains, it's actually not good for the fantasy scores. But I was looking through, and just to sort of give you some of the numbers on that, the Cats actually had the second highest fantasy score for the whole round, second only to the Hawks this afternoon, who basically played witches' hats for the last 20 minutes. And the Bombers were just slightly below average. So, yeah, there was still, although it was raining, there was definitely still points around. So I feel like sometimes people will see the rain and jump out. I don't know. This should be something people should be looking for. But yeah, Caldwell was really, really good. So I think a lot of people would have had him in. What stung though was the other side. And maybe we'll start with Merritt. He 104. Maybe doesn't hurt you as much as it hurt, or does not hurt you as much as it hurts me, because I loaded up on him. I loved the matchup this week, and yeah, it just didn't get right. So 23 touches, kicked a goal, which was good to see, but yeah, just never threatened a big score, and that really hurts me head to head with you and for my round. So what do you see with Merritt?
I guess saving grace a little bit is that I also started Merritt, put the silver on him. But look, it's just wet weather footy. It just wasn't his day. And I feel like some Bulls and people who love the inside pill, and clearly that was Try Caldwell, this one with his tackle count, they're going to shine, and they're going to get a lot better score in games like this. Merritt, he's really clean player. He is good on the inside, but he's also fantastic on the outside, getting the ball on the run and then kicking forward. So because he is an all-rounder and is so good in all those aspects, I think it sort of negated his potential a little bit, the weather in this one. So, but not enough for me to take him out, because I did know it was going to be raining beforehand. I still thought the matchup was tasty enough, but unfortunately, just not his round.
And the other one that's not there that I ummed and ahed about putting into my squad was Nicky Martin. So 27 touches, but 98 points. So I'm glad I didn't drop one of the midfielders for him. But again, not terrible.
What about Ridley? My neck hurts trying to find his score here going down.
Yeah, I was kind of.
I need to get a massage tomorrow.
I was getting to him. He finally had that game. It's been coming. He's been so good since he's come back from injury, and he's just had his first stinker. So I think the question is, what do we do next week? What do you think? Is he done? The role?
I think it's weather.
Put it down the weather,
he's
like
fantastic intercept marker. They're gonna love to kick it around the back, kick it around the defense. But when you're playing a wet weather footy, those little skill executions and those little game plans that you have, I think they go out the window. You just want to take ground. You want to get territory in your kicks. You just want to continually move it forward and almost surge up the ground. And someone like Ridley, who's their connector, who's their skill player, is not going to have a good matchup in a game like this. It was just too wet for them to play their game plan. So they just had to, make some adjustments on the fly, which led to, their skill players like Martin, like Ridley, not having a good game and just not being involved. So it's unfortunate, but I only think it's a weather thing, and it's definitely not a concern moving forward. If both of those guys play moving forward and it's better weather, it's dry, mate, they're going to have killer games.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it.
Wait and see what we do on Thursday night. What about on the other side? Looking over at the Cats, Stewart for the first time in a long time. He's up here with the points.
First time in a long time, yes. So seriously.
It's good. I like having Tommy Stewart in my squad. It's been a while since I've thought about doing it. So good to see him come back, but I want to see a bit more of a runway with him. Myers, another one people would have played 105. Again, as a forward, yeah, I'd say good, but not great for me. Like, again, 105, you take it, but obviously to win in rounds, you want to be competing and scoring a little bit more than that.
But it is forwards we're talking about. I think they get a little bit extra leeway. I do get your point.
Maybe you've just gone soft as a coach. Maybe I've since you've gone to America, I've hardened them up. Now I want more from my boys. I've demanded, and you're demanding less. And maybe
don't
that's why
stop.
I'm currently
my forward
3-0.
success keeps going. We got to wait another 3 games. We'll get there.
Yeah. Is there anyone else you want to talk about there? Holmes? No, probably not. Not a GDS player at this stage.
Bowers is having a great season. Dempsey, great game this one. But I just think a bit too much of a pod and way too much of a risk to actually warrant starting in any particular matchup, just with some of the depth that's in the league at the moment. So I think we've wrapped that up quite nicely. Let's go to your game. Saints for the Port Power. 3 players to my 2. We had 2 of the same. Connor, Rosie, prize card comes in. Did crack the top scorers in this one in the graph, but probably wanted a little bit more. Do you want to start there and then we can talk about the others together?
Yeah, I'll start with Rosie. Just a bit of an game by his standards, to be honest. So
he started off good though, from memory. He came out.
He did. He
fire in
did.
the
He had,
first.
he had a good start. It looked like a lot of the guys just ran out of gas in that second half. So Winhager went to Butters for the tag, right? So there was the concern of where does he go, and he had a pretty hard tag on Butters, and Butters, just because he's Butters and he's so quick, got off the chain a couple of times. So Rosie doesn't really have the excuse for why he didn't have a big round. Like I said, when I picked him on Thursday, I don't love the matchup, I don't love the form, but I had to roll the dice with the prize card. So that definitely has not paid off. So, I'm going to see who we got next week. We've got the Dogs. Again, my situation with them. I would recommend playing him, but just because I get that little bit of an edge with that card, maybe it's time for me to reconsider. Maybe it's time for me to reconsider, but I don't know. I just love them too much.
If I can bench All-Star English, you can do it, man. It's okay.
I don't know. I need him to tear a hamstring, and then even then I'll think about still playing him because apparently that's acceptable. Let's talk about the two. Let's talk about the 2 players we played, and then we can get to some of those other defenders that went big. Marshall, he was actually playing out of full forward, and honestly, he could have had 5 goals in this game. So no radical
had a forward 50-meter penalty on one of his marks that he had. He's got whacked in the back after, and he unfortunately missed one. So that's one that could have been added onto the tally.
Yeah, and he kicked 3 and scored 141 and just dominated in the ruck when he was in there. But he wasn't in there a lot. He only had 10 hit-out wins. So, yeah, a very different Rowan Marshall game, but a Rowan Marshall game that I actually really, really liked. So,
look,
yeah.
he was still in the midfield, but he was just pushing up so hard, and they were telling him to go because your strength with like Lear and Radigalia playing one-on-one with forwards, that's not a favorable matchup, even with someone like Max King, who's so ginormous and has such a big lead. But if you add in the extra element of having, Marshall in there, I think that confused your defense a little bit. Clearly paid some dividends, kicking 3 goals.
Yeah, he was just too big. So it's really nice for Marshall owners to know that he can go down there and do that job, because he obviously has been the number 2 ruck all season. So he's good when he's in the middle, and he's good when he goes forward. So that's a bit of Tim English almost, right, from last year, where he could go forward and find himself a goal. So yeah, don't know what else we have to say other than play him next week and play him basically anytime he's not coming up against Max Gawn. Dan Houston, on the other hand, had a bit of a stinker, and he scored 60 points. But I reckon he had 14 touches. I reckon 4 or 5 of them were coming out of the square for kick-ins. So around the ground, he just couldn't be found. And it's my boy, Kane Farrell, who was absolutely eating. He took the Houston role. He was taking all the points off him. So
yeah, seriously, he actually did.
Yeah. So on one hand, I've got all this Kane Farrell stock that I'm just like, yes, this is finally happening. Call this for a couple of years. I reckon Kane Farrell has the keys to our halfback throne, which has always been a pretty tasty role at Port Adelaide. But it came at the cost of Houston. And as you know, I came into the round. I didn't have a bronze Houston, so I had to play a silver. Now I've since acquired myself a bronze Houston. So going forward, I won't have to do that. But yeah, that was definitely a bit of salt on the wounds for what wasn't a really good game by him.
Yeah, that does sting a little bit, mate. But yeah, look, we haven't spoken about Jack Sinclair. If you looked at the numbers didn't indicate that Sinclair was going to be dominating like this. But of course, the numbers aren't the entire story. Sinclair playing plenty of time in the midfield, taking a good chunk of the kick-ins again for the Saints. He was on fire. 158 fantasy points, 31 disposals, 5 tackles, 10 marks to go along with it, mate. I was super, super impressed with the game that he had this round. And I was really disappointed watching it that I didn't start it, in all honesty.
Well, I thought watching this, and I know we have our band. We don't tell each other who we've got and how the leaderboard's going, because obviously we want to be a surprise in 15 minutes when we check it. But I'm like, you know what? I reckon you've played Wanganeen Miller just with how well that Sinclair was playing and how you always pick the wrong one of the two every single week. So I just, something was like, I reckon Tom's got a late change here.
I completely opted to bench both because I thought they were both going to have bad ones. And I was like, if I pick one or the other, I'm going to get the worst of the bad, which could be really, really bad. That was my thought process. But yeah, Sinclair, mate, he was so good. And just to back up my point, when we're talking about the kick-ins, there's some weeks where Sinclair's had none of the kick-ins and Miller has been taking a ton. Sinclair had 6 kick-ins this round.
Yeah, wow.
Led the team in kick-ins. Miller didn't have a single one. Is that something to look at in terms of strategy moving forward? Are the Saints now putting the ball back into Sinclair's hands in these situations and looking for Miller further down the ground? Because it did seem like he was always that pocket kick or the next kick along. So I think it could be something to do with strategy. And I'll tell you what, if that is the case, mate, Sinclair already is having a stellar season, but having that extra floor on top, you can see it in my eyes. My eyes are nice wide, and I love some kick-ins. I'm very bullish about him moving forward with already such a good score. So, mate, Jack Sinclair, I think he's going to start featuring a little bit more in the Zeus Cannons this season.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's definitely fair enough. Do you have, while I will touch on something on Sinclair, do you have the numbers for the kick-ins for the Port players while you've got it there? Because I'm just looking at Sinclair at the moment. Get it. Because I know they've gone back and forth. So to answer the question, I want to see it for a couple of weeks in a row before I start locking in that Sinclair's going to take him every week. Because like you said, they had it set up that way at the start of the year, and then they flipped, again. So Ross the boss doesn't know how he wants to. Yeah. Is Houston and the Farrell.
Yep. So they pretty much they're leading the entire season. The only other person that will come in is Ryan Burton at some point.
I'm talking about today.
But today's game, Kane Farrell, 6 kick-ins, 5 play-ons. Dan Houston, 7 kick-ins, 5 play-ons as well.
There you go.
So 5 split. Kick credit each for it.
That Kane Farrell one where he did play on, I can confirm I was not happy. I was not happy. Missing it by the line by like this much.
Even though you didn't start him, you were still devastated because you knew that was no fault.
Well, I have so many Kane Farrell cards. I have to play him in every other competition. So, yeah, I've still got a vested interest, even if he's not in my classic squad. Keep this going. Is there anyone else you want to talk about there?
Nah, look, Bradley Hill played okay. I know he's the player that we were streaming through our forward lines earlier this year. Had 91 fantasy points throughout. I just think, look, I'm looking elsewhere at the moment. There are some forwards in some mighty fine form, and he was always sitting around that like forward 7 range for me, maybe forward 6 on a good one. But yeah, I just think, look, I've moved on from Bradley Hill. It was great while it lasted, but all things must come to an end, or good things must come to an end. So that's the case with him a little bit.
Yeah, and I want to talk about Horn Francis because I actually played him. I'm realizing now that I played him in my champion squad and in my challenger squad.
Let's go.
So
good.
I played him. So good to see him back because he's someone I also think was copping a bit of stick and we're able to get his cards quite cheap. So, yeah, I was quite happy with that. Lindsay was just saying, Houston hurt me big time. Don't worry, Lindsay. He hurt us too. And hopefully he hurt a lot of other coaches. We haven't checked the leaderboard yet. So we're going to find out. We're going to find out quite short. Yeah, can't even speak tonight. We're going to find out very soon how much he actually hurt us. Let's go. Game 8.
Let's move on. This is one of the final games of the round. They sort of overlapped each other a little bit, but here we go. We've got Richmond v Carlton, and I think the big ticket man in this one, we both started him, so we're sort of going to negate each other a little bit here in terms of points. Nick Newman, and I knew this was going to be a Nick Newman week, but I didn't think 166 fantasy points Nick Newman week. I was more thinking along the lines of a 120, 130, which I would have been very happy with. So do you want to start there, Cal? What was your thoughts on Newman? Is he back a 2024 or 2023 All-Star player for GameDay Squad? Is he now back and cementing himself as one of the better defenders?
I'm not ready to say he's back and that he's going to be an absolute lock every week. He did have the Richmond matchup, which is number 1 for defenders. So yeah, it is the matchup. So he's not going to get a better chance than he just had this round. But still, right, you can only play what's ahead of you, and he was just collecting the ball constantly. It seemed like every turnover was going to him as well, which is just fantastic. 14 marks, right?
For sure.
I'd love to know how many of them were intercepted. We'll get that data too. But yeah, he was great. Sammy Walsh also played as well, who had another massive game. You can see he's on that leaderboard. So maybe the only one that I put salary into this week who's actually hit. So yeah, when I was writing him pretty hard this afternoon, I needed him. I knew I was chasing you because I had a couple of bad scores. I don't know if I've caught up, but it was good to see Walshy go big and the platinum hopefully pay off there. So he's in an awesome bit of form at the moment, and when he's kicking goals, it just puts him to another level. So not something he does a lot of, but it's awesome to see when he does.
Yeah, for sure. Just pull up Lindsay's comment here. Out of interest, you said you couldn't get Newman, which is a shame. I'm very sorry about that. But who did you start instead? I want to know who was the player you had to put into your best defenders instead of Newman.
Hopefully not Ridley.
Hopefully not Ridley, because otherwise, wow, that's a very big difference in fantasy points plus minus. But Cripper, man, Cripper's having a stellar year. Mate, 153 fantasy points.
He's sneaky on a bit of a roll at the moment. So
yes.
I don't know. I wouldn't be putting him on my classic squad, but I tell you what, I know I definitely throw him out in some of the other ones into the challenger and into the champion when I'm having a bit more of a role in those competitions. And yeah, I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I know he's been on a bit of a tear. He's been really carrying this Carlton team, which is really cool to see. And I want to talk about Nank as well, because the big news from this game, right, was obviously Sam de Koning was the late, the late resting or the late out, looking like they were just. And then I know people who still had the ruck available at this time would have swapped to Nankervis like that. But fortunately, I think most coaches would have already had their ruckman play, so I don't know how many actually got to take advantage of that. But yeah, definitely, Nank went pretty big for Richmond and was probably the only really good Richmond player from a fantasy perspective, unless you want to talk yourself into Timmy Taranto being back with 112, but I'm not ready to go there yet.
Nah, but he is back. He's playing really well. Like the weeks
he's
prior,
back in the conversation.
140. He's back in the conversation for best midfielders per round. Just this one in particular. Carlton mids are just that good that they sort of nullified his effect in this one. And look, he had a great start to the game. He was almost on par with Walsh and Cripper in terms of points. But in that third quarter, where Carlton ran away with this game and absolutely dominated, that's where you saw that point gap separation between these two or three players that we just mentioned. So that for me. But I want to talk about someone else. I want to talk about the Dan Rioli legacy game. Where's Decent here? Dan Rioli legacy game. He's back, baby.
I was watching him today, and I saw you post in the Discord, and you're like, "What'd you say, Dan Rioli stocks?" And you're pointing up, and I'm like, "I knew he was having a good game," and I went to check my phone to see how good of a game he was going. I don't know if it warrants this sort of reaction. If he scored 150, 160, maybe I'd let you have it.
He's been scoring 60s all year. I'm finally
legacy game with 111 points. Come off it.
Legacy.
Mate, it's bedtime for you. It's time for you to go to bed. You're talking nonsense with that. Let me talk about something that actually is in reality. Harry Mackay. I played him. I thought the game would go like the third and fourth quarter went. So I kind of got half of what I wanted, and I kind of got about half the score I wanted, and that was 100 points for Mackay. So it was definitely an upside play.
You got half the points you wanted from Mackay. You thought he was in for 200 this round, did you?
I thought he could have kicked 6 or 7. Yeah, I really was hoping. That's the narrative behind playing him this week, was that I actually thought the Blues would come out and make a statement, potentially win by 100 points, and everyone would be like, all right, like we know they're good. It's like, and then I think when I saw you guys lose on the Saturday, I thought, oh, maybe the narrative would be like, oh, is Carlton actually the team to beat? So I was gearing up for it, but no, 2 goals, 2 didn't work out like I wanted, but I didn't get burnt by it. But at this point in the Sunday afternoon, I knew I was chasing you, or I think I'm still chasing you. So I don't know if that was quite enough.
Yep. Jordan Lindsay said Bailey Dale. So not a horrible option, but look, you're definitely losing what? It was like 60 fantasy points in that, unfortunately. Not very
You
ideal. Look,
yeah.
we do some pack openings and give our cards on the Thursday night preview. Maybe if you come along, I'll pick you for that, and then we'll see if we can get you a Nick Newman into the squad because I know that would be pretty tidy, pretty handy.
We give away some good cards on Thursday. What do we give away? We give away a platinum Harley
A platinum
Reid.
Harley Reid and a silver Timmy T. So look,
There you
it's
go.
2 cards that fantastic.
Yeah, definitely that Harley Reid. Gotta love watching him play. Speaking of watching him play, let's get on to that final game here. I told you I want to start with something. I was thinking about this all week because we went a few different pods, and I finished the Thursday show, and I was
So you
like,
ended up getting Duggan. Okay.
Yeah, I'll touch on that in a
Yo
second.
I think initially. So when I was watching this game, I'm like, is he getting Yo's
Yo,
points? Is he getting Duggan's points? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I made my third transaction over the weekend. Yeah, so got the Houston bronze, got the Duggan bronze, and got myself that Diamond Rosie. So great weekend off the field for the boys. Yeah, I want to talk about Waterman because I was telling you how excited I was to sit back on a Sunday afternoon and watch Waterman absolutely tee off. Man, I didn't get to watch the last 5 minutes of the game.
Where is he? Sorry, my neck hurts again. I'm just looking down these scores.
Can remember that graph you had at the start that I've done with the scores?
Yeah.
The West Coast easily the lowest fantasy score points. And that's a concern because if your defenders aren't getting it to midfielders, and your midfielders aren't getting it to your forwards, your scores are going to be pretty low.
Imagine if Duggan didn't have 160, what that graph would look like.
There was a time. So at halftime, I think they had 2 goals. And I think halfway through the third quarter, I think they had 3 goals. And the one person that had one of the goals was the guy that takes kick-ins. So it was they were just absolutely in shambles. And I'm like, you know what? Waterman's doing nothing wrong here. He's just got spuds around him. So, yeah, I definitely got burned because I thought West Coast were going to be a lot better than they were in this game. Unfortunately, as you alluded to, he is pretty low on that list and unfortunately doesn't make it onto that screen. So in my chase to get you, I think his score of 46 this week is going to cost me. You know, they took 1 mark inside their forward 50, and it was like, I don't think they got any more late in the last quarter, but I started getting ready for this. But that's where we got to 1 mark, and that came early in the last quarter too. 3 quarters of football without a mark inside your forward 50, not going to win many games. So
no, definitely not. But look, on the flip side, at least he had Duggan, and I know it's not exactly how fantasy works, but if you sort of combine their scores together, it's 200. It's just over. So maybe that was sort of the saving a little bit, but I know fantasy is a little bit more complex than just adding 2 scores and players together and going, yeah, it should be right. 100 each, we'll take it.
Yeah, I was doing a bit of that. Was that, we got girl math, we got fantasy sport math, where it's like your players together and being like, you know what? Dunkley plus what's his name, Rivers, 120. I'll take that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what I was doing. I was like, Whitfield plus Rivers. That's a good game. It's about 120 each.
Yeah. No, I love it. He was good. What I love about Duggan is he takes the kick in or he'll get the mark and he wants it back so badly. And there's nothing you want more in a fantasy player than someone who wants the ball back, even when it doesn't make sense for them to get it. So he and Luke Ryan are fighting it out over there in Perth for the Battle of Chippies. Because them two just love it. But Dylan Moore, he was the top scoring player for Hawthorn. He looked really, really good. Do you want to talk on him? Because it was a bit of I don't know to me, it was a little bit of a bold call playing him. I know he's been in good form, but you never know. But yeah, he definitely paid off for you.
Oh, look, I had a look at some of the numbers beforehand. Mid matchup, very good against West Coast. Mid forward matchup, extremely good against West Coast as well. I knew that's the type of role that we're looking at with Dylan Moore. What I didn't anticipate is actually how much time he spent in towards the midfield and time sort of at stoppages. So I was pleasantly surprised by that, which I think just goes to show why his disposal count was so high. 29 disposals. I could not predict that. I did not think that's the type of game he's going to have. The 2 goals, probably, I was sort of hoping and banking on him being a little bit dangerous in front of the sticks, but yeah, when I saw his game and he just continued to get clearance, kick marks, he just was everywhere. He was so good for me. And I do think at this point when I was looking at it, Duggan really stung. but I do think I've done enough to win this round against you, at least head-to-head. I don't know about in the whole season because I think I had like 5 players to play and I had 2,100 at the start of today. And I know some of the scores coaches have been putting up have just been monstrous. So
Yeah, I reckon it's
hopefully
going to be
it's enough
2-8,
for
2-9.
top 20.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I reckon someone will have nailed it and sort of dodged a few of the mines and your Gouldens and your Gorns and snuck to 2,900. But we'll see that in a moment.
For sure.
I just want to touch on Sicily here. So Sicily was actually the highest scoring player onto the ground by some margin until he dislocated it looks like he's dislocated his shoulder. So he was sitting there at 133. I think Duggan was on 122 or something at the time. So Sicily could have been on for a huge game. So unfortunately, because I know I played him in some of the other competitions, so 133, you'd still take that. But man, he could have been even better. So yeah, but that probably means that Sicily is not going to be around for us when we're talking about that Geelong matchup next week.
Unfortunately, yeah, and he's just coming he's coming like good at the right time. He hasn't got the kick-in role exactly. This is something that I wanted to talk about in the preview, but he's definitely taking more kick-ins than he was at the start of the season. They were sort of avoiding using Sicily at all. Look, Carl Amon definitely has the majority of the kick-ins, but Sicily's coming in at number 2 now, and he's getting about 4 a game, which is just adding to his floor. It's more about 3 a game over the past 4, but it's just adding to his floor of fantasy points. And Sicily, unfortunately, was really trending in the right direction. I just didn't think this week was a good matchup, but I definitely have him and had him on my radar as best defenders for each round. And the only reason I didn't start Sicily is because I thought Houston was in for a mega game. So I sort of thought like those two were fighting it out and Houston got the nudge for me. But looking back on it, goodness, maybe I should have started Sicily.
Yeah, I don't know where Sicily finished, even with the dislocation. He might have still finished as a top 7 defender. But yeah, hopefully he can bounce back pretty soon because he's pretty important for that Hawthorn team, of course. Last player I just want to touch on is Lloyd Meek. I know we were looking for that ruckman. Who do you play as the pod ruckman? If you went Lloyd Meek 120, he would have done okay. So definitely better than Gawn. But continues to be surprisingly good over there, Meek. So I'm not ready to play him. Remember, just before you went to America about a month ago, there was a game where I streamed him in. I don't know if he's going to feature that. He might be a one and done in my squad this season. But
I think, hold up. Your catchphrase was "Don't be weak, play Meek."
Yeah, didn't work. I think I played Meek, and I don't think anyone listened to me. So yeah,
okay.
But it's good to see him doing well as well. So.
Alrighty, mate. I think that wraps us up. Game 9, pretty standard after that. Not too many fantasy relevant players. Guinea could have been a good pod just before we go as a forward. 118 fantasy points. He's finding his feet, let's say, at Hawthorn. 2 goals though definitely helps in the fantasy points department. But I can't see too many people streaming him through their forward lines at the moment, especially with someone like Dylan Moore. If you're going to look at those two head-to-head, I think you just go more just out of potential rather than anything else, numbers or anything. But, Cal, we want to know, what was your biggest coaching call that you made in the round? Now, this can be either good or be bad. What do you think, where you pinpoint your round, what was the best or worst call that you made and that affected you the most?
I reckon I'm going to go to Waterman pick because, like I said, I was really playing for a narrative here, and he did. Like 46 is going to kill me there. So I would have taken like a Myers 100 was the sort of the player that I potentially would have played over him. Or there was a few other players I think that was sort of borderline that finished around that 100. So yeah, me sitting back and thinking that West Coast were going to be a competent football team this afternoon didn't pay off. So yeah, that really hurt, and I think that's what's cost me because I think I was chasing you here, and I reckon we're about to check the scores here in a moment. I reckon I'll fall on about 50 points short, and I reckon that's that Waterman. That's that 46.
50? You reckon it's literally just in that game?
I reckon I'm in within 50. But I reckon you probably by about 50.
Yeah,
What's yours?
absolutely fair enough. Look, I'm going to go with, so other than your sort of set and forget forwards at the moment in like Fisher, Flanders, Heaney, and Zorko, I'm going to go my three other forwards won me this round and made my round so good. Those
We
picks
scored the
being,
win.
sorry, as in like good score. I don't mean like win as in like win it overall. But I mean, it's a winning play for me as a coach. I put Jai Caldwell in 164, Rankin 137, and Dylan Moore at 148. I think my forwards almost outscored my midfield, and that doesn't usually
Yeah,
happen
wow.
too often. But my forwards were that good this round that's potentially the case for me. So that's how I'm feeling about it, Cal. But I reckon, Cal, you should pull up your screen first, and I want to see the scores.
Alrighty, let's get this going. Alrighty, let me maximize that so you don't have to look at the rest of my rubbish. You ready? Gonna have to give this a refresh. It's been sitting here for a little bit. What do you think you scored overall? Oh no!
Yes!
2895.
When I saw it, I didn't believe it, but I'm seeing it. I don't believe it.
How far down am I?
Golden, imagine my all-star
Oh no!
Golden. Oh yes, this is so good. This is why I had my championship hangover with the Celtics. Did you even get in the top 50? Oh, you snake! You just got in 49.
49.
Oh, I wonder what my seasonal rank is. Am I catching up at all, or is it still just?
Wow. Well, congratulations. You've ended the streak. I got 3 in a row. Where are you now? 16th. How far back from first? 400 points. 350 points. Mate,
I'm closing in a little bit, just not enough.
350 points in what we got 8 weeks left. 8 weeks left, I think.
Yeah, but there's some really fantastic coaches in front of me, I have to say. They've been killing it all season. So it's really going to take my best moving forward to crack in that top 10 and potentially get a prize card. But I am, that's been the mission. That's been the goal all season, and it won't change. That is exactly what I'm looking for. My past 3 weeks in Boston have not helped, or 3 weeks abroad have not helped. But my goodness, that's how good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let me go through just the final.
Take us through the rounds though.
Yeah, I want to see. I want to see how we went through the rest of these. If we had any good. I finished 100th. I can't see you there. Damn, I thought I did all right in that one. Challenger, I can't see you in there. 84th.
Starter, I was 47. Challenger, I was 60th.
Nah, 3,000 in the champion. I'm doing well. I'm doing about just. Yeah, I'm doing good without doing anything too great there. So, oh well.
All righty, Cal. Before we wrap up, last thing, what is your weekly takeaway for round 16? What have you learned and that you're going to apply to your squad moving forward?
I don't want to double down on the West Coast take. Let me see if I can give you something else. Have you got one off the top of your head?
I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to double down on the Isaac Rankin thing. I know I mentioned it a little bit earlier in this show, but I think Isaac Rankin moving forward with Crouch out with his injury, he's just a must start forward in your best 7 at the moment. And if you don't have a Rankin, definitely hit the transfer market because he's going to put in a really solid block of performances. I know you mentioned the Lions match up in the next round, but yeah, look, Rankin, you need to get him. Absolute must get.
Yeah, I'll give you a different one here. My takeaway is that Rowan Marshall can actually finish the season as the number 1 ruck. Like I said, he really did impress me against Port today. Again, we didn't have a ruckman, but it's not just that he dominated us. It's that he actually played really well when he went forward as well. So you never know with Gawn. Melbourne look like there's some funky things going on. So I really think that, yeah, watch how they go and how they finish the year. I think Gawn and Marshall will still get the 2 All-Star spots. But yeah, maybe Marshall can close down. I think he's about 8 points, or he's about 8-point average heading into the round. So he'd still need to have a few good rounds and Gorn to fall off a little bit. But I still think he can do it.
Love it, mate. Love it. Ron, I don't really love it, but, I like your take. I understand it.
You hate it.
Yes, I really do. I do. But, Cow, mate, that's going to wrap us up. The round 16 Aussie Rules Fantasy Review, done and dusted. What was I again? 5th for the round. Can you remind me?
Congratulations. Yeah, congratulations. That was actually quite impressive. It wasn't the 50 points he got me by. It was the 150. So,
50. This guy, what calculations are you doing, mate? You need to come back to my school here, my lessons. But all right, legends, thanks everyone for coming out. And definitely make sure I quickly punch through round review, winner, chicken dinner. But next show, 8 p.m. AEST Thursday. This is going to be our preview for the round. We're going to show you our squads. We're going to go game by game, talk about some of the matchups, the players you should be targeting. So hopefully we'll see you all there. And hopefully you did a little bit better than